Hey guys, and welcome to another Stronghold Crusader Mechanics video. This is the series that I'm going over some basic Crusader mechanics and how they all work together, hopefully so that you guys can improve your gameplay. We've gone over things like height advantage and attack move and rally points and all that good stuff. Today is going to be all about the farms. If you're enjoying this sort of content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you know when more stuff is going to come out. If you have any questions on this or any other videos, or maybe you have an idea of what else I should cover, you can comment below, or you can come along to my Twitch stream. I do stream twice a weekend, every weekend. The links will be in the description below the video. So as I said, today is all about farms. We're going to be focusing on the farm spaces, not the workers. So we're going to be focusing on what farm would be best fit in a certain amount of space that you have available. We will also be looking at how the distance affects the production or productivity of each farm, and we'll get into it. Hops and wheat farms need to be as close as possible to your stockpile, as they're going to be just walking from their farm to the stockpile, nowhere else. So that is going to be where we're going to be focusing those guys. Whereas the apples and cheese need to be as close as possible to the granary, because that's the only path they're going to be taking. However, the dairy farm, if you're going to make leather armor, that needs to be as close as possible to your leather armorers and your armories. Now, something that I'm not showing and testing today, however, it's a good thing to know, it'll be in another video later, is that the leather armorer makes 3 lots of leather armor per cow. So they'll walk out to the farm, pick up a cow, walk back to their workshop, make leather armor, drop it off, go back to the workshop, make more leather armor, workshop, make more, workshop. So you've got 3 trips between the workshop and the armory, compared to 1 trip from the workshop to the dairy farm. So you want to be having your leather art workshops as close as possible to the armory, rather than focusing on getting as close as possible to the farm. Alright, so I'm going to have a lot of these tests running in the background. I kind of try to run 4 tests at once. However, the way it worked kind of came off and on, so the tests may look a bit odd in the background when I get to it. But you know, I did it all right, and it just like the apple farms might not be as far out as the bread farms, and I might be talking about wrong ones at the wrong time, but it's just the way I've recorded each one, so that should be fine. But if you have any questions, ask me in the comments below, or ask me in the on my stream. I'm happy to field questions, and sometimes even show some of these questions as we go. Now this so the first test, we went with everything right next to it. So we had our bread, hops, apples, and cheese first. And we started off with an unseasoned apple. I'll explain that in a moment. But initially, this test gave us 576 bread, which sells for 2,304 gold. And we produced 48 hops, which you could purchase for 720. Now, the reason I've gone the purchase versus the sell price here is you're deciding what to use your farm space for. So if you make use your farm space to get bread, make wheat and get bread, and then sell some of that bread and buy hops, you're going to be better off than if you had it just get hops. So the overall thing, you should be still going for the bread there, and that'll give you quite a large bonus from going bread over hops there. On the other side, we've got 218 apples versus 103 cheese. You will notice that there are 2 apple farms, however, so the cheese is only slightly less efficient than the apples, and in fact, because of the different pathing from the farms, it is possible that that difference is accounted for by the inefficiencies in my setup. However, I would say that the apples are actually slightly better as by default. In our second test, we actually made the apples seasoned, I will explain what the apple seasons are now. Work, work, work. Now we're going to wait for this guy to go into green trees, and we're going to delay just a little bit after that before we build this next apple orchard here. Now the reason for that is that if a apple farm is not currently producing apples, its worker can go and work on another farm. So you can, if you do it just right, you can actually have 2 workers working on one farm, and then they'll go over and work on the other farm. And so it's just they're constantly working and getting in food, as opposed to sitting down and waiting for the season half the time. Crater Lotus believes that is double the amount of food that we get, and we're going to be testing to find out how it is. Crater Lotus is always complaining that this isn't done in our multiplayer games on stream. So it's just gone green. Gonna wait a couple seconds, and then we're gonna go. Oh, that was a bit late actually, but hopefully what isn't going to be too bad. So let's speed this up. I'm actually going to wait for this worker to get to this farm so I can show you him coming over to work this guy. He's going to show up, no apples to get, so he's going to come over here, and he's going to pick up this stuff, apples here. Now he's coming home to work on his own thing. So obviously it's not as efficient as it could be, because I didn't place it exactly right. However, that is a cost of doing it this way. You have to actually really plan it out. Yeah, the fact that there was half a second where there was neither farm having any apples and this guy got to sit down, that's where it's bad. Let's speed it up and find out what happens over 5 years. With the seasons trick, the apples produced 373 from the same farms that without seasons produced 218. However, that particular test, the seasons weren't exactly as efficient as I possibly could get it, so you can expect that you would get more from it if you got it just right. However, when you're setting up the seasons trick, how you get it and is just going to be good or bad depending on your exact timing, and that's something you have to deal with. So it is a little bit more less reliable in getting the amount of apples. As for the leather, we got 247 leather armor out of this one farm, which could actually sell for 2,964 leather armor. Now remembering that the bread at the same distance from the stockpile provided us 2,304 gold. This shows that at the closest level, the leather armor is better. Of course, the farmland may be closer to one or the other, so keep that in mind when you're deciding which one to use. At the distance of 2 cathedrals away from the destination point, so the stockpile for your bread and hops, and the granary for apples and cheese, and your leather workshops for your leather armor. The bread produces 360 bread, which sells for 1,440 gold. You would get 36 hops, which you'd have purchased for 540 gold. Now note, again, you're only spending about a third of your bread income on buying that hops, so it is better to go for that bread still. The apples seasoned for the rest of these tests. You're getting 238 apples, but again, remembering this is from 2 farms. You're getting 72 cheese and 244 leather armor. We expect it to be about the same as the first test, and it was only 3 armor less, which is mostly due to the fact that my timing isn't exact when I'm starting and stopping these tests. So there is a margin of error in all these numbers. So that 247 versus 244 is within that margin of error, so I'm going to call that the leather armor production can be kept at that peak efficiency of 247 leather armor per apple dairy farm in 5 years, no matter how far away it is. And so we'll just leave it at that. I'm going to cease that testing at this point so that I could spend more time testing everything else. At the distance of 4 cathedrals away from the deposit point, your bread is producing 240 bread, which sells for 960 gold, versus hops giving you 27 hops for 405 gold purchase price. This is starting to get a bit closer to the bread value, however it is still less than half of the bread value being used to purchase that hops. I don't think it ever gets to actually the same, but we'll continue the testing a bit further on. The apples is 162, still seasoned. Note that at this point I'm pretty sure the seasoning is not affecting anything. The time that the worker walks from their farm to the granary and back, the off-season has already gone through, and so they get back and they start gathering anyway, so there's no real benefit to seasoning at this distance. Anything much past 2 cathedrals distance from your granary has this effect. The cheese, you are producing 54 cheese from the one farm. Now I'm actually going to group some of the rest of these tests together because the way it actually worked out was actually quite, well, it's important for you to know. So if you'll notice, for bread, we've had approximately, and off the top of my head calculation, about a 40% decrease each time we've sent the farms out. Whereas at this point we've started to reach where it doesn't decrease quite so fast. At 6 cathedrals distance, you're producing 160 bread for 640 gold. At 8 cathedrals distance is 144, which is only about an eighth difference. And then at 10 cathedrals distance, it's 128, which is about an eighth difference again from the previous distance. As for hops, at 6 cathedrals distance, we are making 18, which you could purchase for 270, which is again still less than half of the bread. At 8 cathedrals distance, you're also getting 18. This, in my testing, again, there was a margin of error, so it could be plus or minus 1 on both ones. But it's the exact same as the previous one, no decrease, which is still actually less than half of the bread income. And at 10 cathedrals distance, you're making 15, which is a very small decrease, but 225 gold purchase price, which is just over half the income from your bread. At 10 cathedrals distance from your stockpile, that is almost half the map distance away from your stockpile, so there should really not be any situation where you're going past 10 cathedrals, and therefore I think it's safe to say that it's always better to make a wheat farm instead of a hops farm. As for apples, at 6 cathedrals distance, there is 116 apples and 98 apples at 8 cathedrals distance. I did not test up to 10 because I just didn't think it was worth it at 98 apples for 2 farms at 8 tiles different distance. I just did not see any benefit in continuing testing because that's a huge amount of distance. Cheese, I only went up to 6 cathedrals distance, which gives us 45. Looks to be about at the diminishing returns already at 4 cathedrals distance. Remember, there was 54, so you've lost about 20%, and it's probably just going to go about that from then on. It is generally any further out than that. I mean, you're going to be going for leather armor anyway. Theoretically, if you're building that far out, you want to be getting your eco up. You're only building out that for eco, not for actual food provision. So therefore, if you're going for food provision, you're going to be going for something like bread anyway. And if you're going for gold, you could be going for bread, or you could be going for leather armor, depending on if you want to invest into your leather workshops. I just didn't see the point in continuing testing the cheese at that point. As you can see, and as I've been saying all the way through this, bread trumps hops in all situations. apples is pretty good, but if you're going to use apples, you want to have them seasoned. So you place one first, and you place your second a little bit later, so that the workers can work both farms. 2 workers can work each farm at the same time, and that will give them a huge boost. Still not as good as the wheat farm, however, it is a lot cheaper to buy 2 farms than a wheat farm, a mill, and all the bakeries needed. So when you first start the game, going as apples is great, and then you maybe want to transition into bread when you have spare wood a bit later on. Initially, you might want to spend that wood on other economies like stone and iron and pitch maybe. As for cheese, to be honest, I don't think it's ever really worth it to go for cheese. Leather armor, on the other hand, it is definitely worth it. However, it is expensive. Remembering that each workshop does cost 100 gold and 10 wood. So you've got the same situation as the bread. You've got a lot of investment that you need to get into it. So you're not going to start off with that, but you may want to transition into that later. However, again, you've got this gold that's going into leather armor workshops that could instead be going into any other type of workshop, or into troops, or into a lot of other options that you could be using that gold on instead of making those workshops. So you may decide to go for bread, and instead of investing into leather armor, you go get bread and invest into, I don't know, metal armor or something along those lines. I'm going to do an in-depth video of the weapons workshops later, and find out who's the most efficient at each task, and where, so you can figure out where you want to actually spend your gold. However, as far as the farms are concerned, leather armor is actually the most gold productive economy out of all the farms, followed by bread, then apples, and then hops, then cheese. Again, if you enjoyed that video, don't forget to send me a like and subscribe, and comment down below letting me know that it was great, or if you hated it, or if you have any suggestions on what else I can be doing. I love to hear from you guys. Or head along to my stream. I do stream every weekend. In the weekend, I'll have the link down below. I'm at the moment kind of chopping and changing between YouTube and Twitch. So if you head along to the Discord and leave a little notification there, I will be able to notify you which one I'll be on each time, if you're not able to find me otherwise. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys next time.
Oh my goodness, can you get all the shields gone?
Shield ready. Your orders? Aye, sir. Shield ready.
Oh, right now?